Imagine waking up one morning to discover that the very place you call home no longer wants you there. Sounds dramatic, right? But by 2025, millions of people in the UK could be forced to leave, caught in a storm of new laws, soaring costs, and challenges nobody saw coming. From hidden government policies to everyday struggles with housing, jobs, and even healthcare, the reasons are both shocking and urgent. And trust me, you'll want to hear number 7, because it might affect you more than you think. So stick around, this could be the wake-up call you never expected. Number 1. Stricter immigration policies. Across the UK, immigration policies are becoming tougher than ever, leaving millions uncertain about their future. The government has introduced higher salary thresholds for visas, reduced family reunion opportunities, and tightened restrictions on work permits. This means many people who have lived, worked, and contributed to British society for years now face the threat of being told they no longer qualify to stay. Families are finding it harder to bring loved ones over, and international students are limited in their ability to remain after finishing their degrees. For many, the UK is beginning to feel less like a welcoming home and more like a place of constant legal hurdles. Behind these policy changes lies a strong push to cut net migration numbers. Ministers argue this is necessary to relieve pressure on housing, jobs, and public services, but the human cost is rarely discussed. For example, imagine a family where one parent meets the new salary requirement, but the other does not. Suddenly, they are forced to make heartbreaking choices about whether they can remain together. Migrant workers who helped keep the country running during crises, such as the pandemic, now feel unappreciated and at risk of removal. These stories highlight the disconnect between official policies and the real lives they impact daily. What makes this shift especially challenging is how it affects future opportunities. Skilled workers once drawn to the UK for growth may start looking elsewhere, leaving gaps in essential industries like healthcare, education, and technology. Businesses already report difficulties filling roles, yet policies continue to narrow pathways for international talent. For ordinary people, the anxiety of visa renewals and the fear of being forced out is becoming overwhelming. The uncertainty surrounding these laws doesn't just impact migrants, it ripples through entire communities, workplaces, and even local economies. Stricter immigration rules may be designed to control numbers, but they could end up pushing away the very people who bring strength, diversity, and innovation to the UK. This growing tension is one of the clearest reasons millions may have no choice but to leave by 20. Number 2. Economic pressures. The rising cost of living in the UK is driving countless individuals and families to reconsider whether staying is sustainable. Over the past few years, the prices of everyday essentials like food, energy, and transportation have soared, leaving many households struggling just to cover basic needs. Inflation continues to eat away at paychecks, and even those earning stable wages are finding their money doesn't stretch as far as it once did. For families with children, the cost of childcare and school supplies adds another crushing burden. People who once managed comfortably now feel trapped in a cycle of stress, constantly worrying about bills and rising expenses. Energy bills are perhaps the most striking example of this crisis. With heating costs doubling in some cases, many families have been forced to choose between staying warm in winter or keeping food on the table. This kind of decision, unimaginable in wealthier times, is now a reality for millions. Renters are also hit hard, with landlords increasing rents to match market trends, often leaving tenants with little choice but to downsize, relocate, or leave altogether. For younger generations, the dream of homeownership feels more distant than ever, as property prices skyrocket far beyond their reach. These financial pressures are creating a deep sense of hopelessness across the country. The bigger picture shows how these economic strains push people to consider alternatives abroad. Countries with lower living costs and stronger social support systems suddenly appear more attractive. Migrants who once came to the UK seeking opportunity now see themselves better off returning home or moving elsewhere. Even long-term residents are contemplating leaving in search of a better quality of life. While the government has introduced some relief measures, they often fall short of addressing the scale of the crisis. Businesses, too, are feeling the squeeze, with higher costs impacting jobs and wages. This creates a feedback loop. As people struggle, demand drops, and businesses cut back, further weakening the economy. Ultimately, the mounting economic pressures make it clear why so many are seriously considering leaving the UK by 2025, as survival itself becomes more uncertain with every passing month. Number 3. Housing crisis. The housing crisis in the UK has become one of the most pressing issues pushing people to the edge. Affordable homes are increasingly out of reach, with rent prices hitting record highs and availability dropping to historic lows. Families are being forced into cramped, unsuitable spaces, while young professionals share overcrowded flats just to make ends meet. For many, the idea of owning a home is no longer even a dream, it's a fantasy. The imbalance between supply and demand has created a situation where even modest accommodations cost more than many households can manage. This pressure is making people wonder whether staying in the UK is truly worth it. Part of the problem lies in the limited construction of new housing. Decades of underbuilding, combined with rising demand from both locals and migrants, have created a severe shortage. This shortage drives prices upward, not only for buyers but also for renters. At the same time, mortgage rates have climbed sharply, leaving homeowners locked into expensive payments or unable to buy at all. Families with children often struggle to find safe, suitable places to live, leading some to accept substandard conditions just to have a roof over their heads. For low-income households, the situation is even worse, with many ending up on long waiting lists for social housing that may never come. The impact of this crisis extends far beyond personal finances. High housing costs affect health, education, and mental well-being. Constantly worrying about rent or facing eviction notices creates overwhelming stress and anxiety. In cities like London, Manchester, and Birmingham, workers commute longer distances just to afford a place to live, eating away at both time and quality of life. Unsurprisingly, many are now considering relocation to countries where housing is more affordable and accessible. Whether it's moving abroad or returning to their country of origin, the law of stability and affordability is strong. With little sign of improvement in the housing market, the housing crisis is becoming a defining factor in why millions may choose or be forced to leave the UK. Number 4. Strain on healthcare NHS. The National Health Service (NHS) has long been considered the backbone of the UK, but in recent years it has come under extreme strain. Patients across the country face long waiting times for basic treatments, delayed surgeries, and difficulty booking GP appointments. What was once praised as one of the world's strongest healthcare systems is now struggling under pressure, leaving many to question whether they can rely on it at all. For vulnerable groups, such as the elderly, children, and those with chronic conditions, the uncertainty surrounding access to timely healthcare creates constant worry. The cracks in the system are pushing people to consider whether moving abroad might provide better security for their health needs. One of the main issues is a severe shortage of healthcare workers. Thousands of doctors, nurses, and specialists have left the profession due to burnout, low pay, and poor working conditions. Recruitment from overseas has slowed as immigration rules tighten, leaving hospitals and clinics even more understaffed. The result is overcrowded emergency rooms and month-long delays for non-urgent care. In some cases, patients wait over a year for operations that could drastically improve their quality of life. Stories of people suffering or even dying while waiting for care highlight how deeply the NHS crisis is affecting lives. When healthcare becomes unreliable, people naturally start seeking alternatives. The financial burden is another factor. With cuts to funding and rising demand, many services that were once free now come with hidden costs, from prescription charges to private referrals. Families with children who need special care or individuals managing long-term illnesses are increasingly turning to private healthcare, which is far too expensive for most. Comparisons with other countries make the situation worse, as nations like Germany, France, and Spain offer faster, more efficient healthcare at lower personal expense. For many, the prospect of better medical care abroad is not just attractive, it feels essential. If people cannot trust their healthcare system to support them in times of need, the choice to leave the UK becomes more than a preference. It becomes a necessity. This growing healthcare strain is another powerful reason millions may feel forced to leave. Number 5. Job market shifts. The UK job market is undergoing massive transformation, and not everyone is benefiting from these changes. With the rise of automation and artificial intelligence, many traditional jobs are disappearing or becoming obsolete. Industries that once provided stable employment, such as manufacturing, retail, and even administrative roles, are shrinking rapidly. Workers who relied on these positions now face an uncertain future, with limited options for secure employment. While new opportunities are being created in tech and digital industries, not everyone has the resources or skills to make that transition. This widening gap is leaving many behind, forcing people to consider leaving the UK to find stable work elsewhere. At the same time, companies are cutting costs in response to economic instability, which often means wage stagnation or reductions in staff. Skilled workers who remain employed are frequently overworked and underpaid, struggling to keep up with increasing demands while receiving little in return. For younger generations entering the workforce, the outlook is bleak. Graduates face high levels of debt from student loans and are competing for a shrinking number of well-paying jobs. The mismatch between qualifications and available positions leaves many either unemployed or stuck in temporary, low-paying work. For migrants, the barriers are even higher, as stricter visa conditions and employer restrictions create additional challenges to secure long-term stability. The ripple effects of these job market shifts are profound. Without reliable income, individuals and families cannot plan for their future, buy homes, or invest in their children's education. The stress of job insecurity also impacts mental health, creating cycles of anxiety and uncertainty. Meanwhile, other countries are actively welcoming skilled workers with attractive packages, better pay, and clearer career pathways. Nations like Canada, Australia, and Germany are offering opportunities that seem far more secure than what the UK currently provides. For many, the choice becomes simple: stay in a country where jobs are scarce and wages stagnant, or move to a place with more promise. Number 6. Post-Brexit challenges. The decision to leave the European Union fundamentally changed life in the UK, and the ripple effects are still being felt years later. For millions of EU nationals who once lived and worked freely in Britain, the shift has been nothing short of dramatic. Freedom of movement, a cornerstone of EU membership, was stripped away, leaving many facing complex visa processes, residency paperwork, and uncertainty about their legal status. This has created a sense of instability for families who had built their lives in the UK, with many deciding that returning to their home countries or relocating elsewhere in Europe is a safer choice. Beyond personal struggles, the economic impact of Brexit has reshaped opportunities. Businesses that once relied on seamless trade across Europe now face customs checks, tariffs, and supply chain disruptions. This has hurt small businesses the most, as they lack the resources to navigate the new regulations. Workers in industries like agriculture, hospitality, and logistics, sectors that depended heavily on EU labor, have seen job opportunities shrink as companies struggle to adjust. For students, the loss of programs like Erasmus has cut off opportunities to study and exchange abroad, reducing access to cultural and educational growth. These structural barriers make the UK less appealing, especially when compared to EU nations that still enjoy shared benefits. The cultural and political climate post-Brexit has also created tension. Surveys reveal that many EU nationals no longer feel as welcome as they once did, with some experiencing discrimination or hostility linked to anti-immigrant sentiment. This change in social atmosphere adds to the feeling that the UK is no longer the open, inclusive society it once was. Meanwhile, European countries are offering smoother residency rights and better professional opportunities for skilled workers, making them increasingly attractive destinations. For people weighing their future, the decision is clear: stay in a country where Brexit has closed doors or move to one where those doors remain wide open. Number 7. Climate and environmental pressures. The UK is facing increasing climate challenges that make daily life more difficult and expensive. Rising energy costs are a clear example, with households paying double or even triple what they once did just to keep warm during long winters. These costs are not only straining family budgets, but also forcing many into fuel poverty, where people must choose between heating their homes or affording other essentials. Extreme weather, from unexpected heat waves to heavy flooding, is adding even more instability. For many families, this growing environmental pressure makes living in the UK unsustainable, especially when compared to countries with milder conditions and lower energy expenses. Flooding has become one of the most visible threats. Towns near rivers and coastal areas are seeing rising flood risks year after year, with insurance premiums soaring or becoming unavailable altogether. Families who spent decades building their lives in these regions now face the terrifying reality that their homes could be destroyed in a single storm. At the same time, summer heat waves are testing infrastructure never designed to handle such high temperatures, causing disruptions in transport and health risks for vulnerable populations. The NHS itself is under added pressure as more people suffer from heat-related illnesses, compounding an already struggling system. These environmental problems are closely tied to rising costs of living. As climate issues worsen, the government and energy providers pass costs on to consumers, creating a cycle of hardship. For workers already stretched thin by low wages and high housing costs, these added expenses can be the breaking point. In contrast, other countries with stronger investments in renewable energy and climate resilience offer cheaper, more stable options. Families looking ahead to the next decade often see greater security abroad, where their children can grow up in safer, more sustainable environments. The combination of climate risk, spiraling bills, and lack of preparation is convincing many that staying in the UK will only become harder. The escalating environmental pressures are not just about weather, they are about safety, affordability, and survival. By 2025, this factor alone could drive countless families to pack up and search for a more sustainable future elsewhere. Number 8. Political instability. The UK has entered a period of growing political instability, and this uncertainty is leaving millions anxious about their future. Frequent changes in leadership, shifting policies, and divisive debates have created a climate where people feel uncertain about what tomorrow will bring. From Brexit negotiations to debates over immigration, taxation, and healthcare funding, the lack of clear direction has eroded public trust. Families planning their futures, whether it's buying a home, investing in education, or securing permanent residency, are left in limbo, unsure which rules or laws might change next. This instability makes it harder for people to see the UK as a stable place to build long-term lives. For many, this is not just about politics in theory, it directly affects daily living. Policy swings on taxation, public services, and energy pricing leave people constantly adjusting their budgets and lifestyles. Migrant communities feel especially vulnerable as new immigration laws are introduced with little warning, sometimes leaving individuals scrambling to meet new requirements. Businesses too are affected, with uncertainty making it harder to plan investments or create jobs. Without consistent leadership and reliable policy making, companies hesitate to grow, which further limits opportunities for workers. The cycle of hesitation and unpredictability trickles down to ordinary citizens, who bear the brunt of every policy reversal. The broader impact is a sense of fatigue and frustration. Many people feel that political leaders are disconnected from everyday struggles, focusing on power struggles rather than solutions. This loss of confidence is driving people to look at countries where governments are perceived as more stable and responsive to their citizens' needs. For families considering long-term stability, the idea of living in a nation where policies can change overnight is unsettling. Stability is one of the most important factors in deciding where to live, and right now the UK is struggling to provide it. The growing political instability marked by uncertainty, division, and lack of trust is another major reason why millions may feel compelled to leave the UK by 2025 in search of security and predictability elsewhere. Number 9. Education costs and accessibility. The rising cost of education in the UK is becoming a heavy burden for students and families alike. Tuition fees at universities remain among the highest in Europe, often leaving graduates with decades of student debt. For international students, the situation is even tougher, as they face much higher fees than domestic learners, plus additional expenses for visas and living costs. This financial weight makes the UK far less attractive compared to other countries that offer world-class education at lower costs, or in some cases, completely free. For many families, the dream of studying in Britain has turned into a financial nightmare. Beyond tuition, the accessibility of education is shrinking. Budget cuts to schools and colleges mean fewer resources, larger class sizes, and reduced support for students with special needs. Parents are increasingly forced to pay for private tutoring just to ensure their children keep up. At the university level, reduced funding for research and scholarships limits opportunities for young people to grow academically and professionally. The loss of programs such as Erasmus has also taken away valuable international experiences, isolating UK students from cultural and educational exchange. For those who once viewed the UK as a hub of learning and opportunity, the system now appears restrictive and financially punishing. This shift has long-term consequences. Highly talented students and researchers may choose countries like Germany, the Netherlands, or Canada, where education is more affordable and accessible. Parents looking for better opportunities for their children are considering relocation to places where the educational pathway is clearer and less financially crippling. Even UK-born students increasingly explore studying abroad to escape mounting debts. Education is not just about learning, it is about building futures, securing careers, and gaining stability. When these goals become blocked by costs and cuts, families are forced to rethink their options. The rising education costs and reduced accessibility make it clear why millions may no longer see the UK as the best place for opportunity. Number 10. Social tensions and integration issues. In recent years, the UK has seen a rise in social tensions that affect how welcome people feel in their own communities. Reports of xenophobia, cultural clashes, and discrimination have made it harder for many to feel fully accepted. Migrant families who have lived in Britain for decades sometimes find themselves facing hostility simply because of their background or accent. For others, the pressure to fit in creates daily stress and isolation. A country where people no longer feel safe or respected quickly becomes a place they question staying in, regardless of job opportunities or personal ties. The media and politics often amplify these tensions. Heated debates about immigration, national identity, and multiculturalism frequently dominate headlines, shaping public opinion in ways that increase division. When migrants are portrayed as a burden rather than contributors, it fosters resentment and misunderstanding. This negative atmosphere trickles into workplaces, schools, and neighborhoods, making it difficult for communities to build trust. Young people growing up in these environments often struggle with belonging, caught between their cultural heritage and the demand to conform. These experiences create a sense of exclusion that drives families to consider building their futures in countries where diversity is more celebrated. The consequences of unresolved social tensions are serious. Communities that feel divided cannot thrive, and individuals who constantly face discrimination may see relocation as the only solution. Other nations, from Canada to Australia, actively promote multicultural values and provide more inclusive environments, making them attractive destinations for people who feel alienated in the UK. Integration should mean building bridges between cultures, but when barriers continue to grow, the pressure to leave increases. Social harmony is not a luxury. It is a necessity for long-term stability and personal well-being. The rise in integration issues is yet another factor, adding to the growing list of reasons why millions may feel compelled to leave the UK by 2025, searching for a place where they and their families can truly feel at home. The possibility that millions could be forced to leave the UK by 2025 is not the result of one single problem, but the combined weight of many. From stricter immigration policies to the crushing cost of living, the housing crisis, and the strain on the NHS, every challenge pushes individuals and families closer to the breaking point. Add in the uncertainty of the job market, the deep aftershocks of Brexit, worsening climate pressures, ongoing political instability, rising education costs, and growing social tensions, and it becomes clear why so many are questioning whether the UK is still the best place for their future. What makes these issues especially serious is how they intertwine. A family facing high rent may also struggle with healthcare delays. A student burdened by debt may also face limited job opportunities. Migrants caught in legal red tape may also feel the sting of discrimination. These overlapping challenges create a reality that is hard to ignore. While some will adapt and stay, many will feel they have no option but to search for stability and opportunity elsewhere. The UK remains, a country of potential, but unless these issues are addressed with urgency and vision, the exodus of people seeking better lives abroad may accelerate. By 2025, the decisions being made now will determine whether millions stay to rebuild or pack up and leave for good. So what do you think? You had to leave tomorrow, where would you go? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'd love to hear your perspective. Don't forget to check out our previous video for more eye-opening insights. We put a lot of effort into creating these videos for you, so please support us. Just one click to subscribe can make all the difference.